Worlds of Fun is a fairly neglected Cedar Fair park that I recently had the chance to visit for my first time, and not just once either. Since I was staying with a friend in Kansas City, I was able to get out to the park on 3 separate occasions. Throughout my numerous experiences at the park, I was able to ride all 7 of the park's operating roller coasters. And sure, Worlds of Fun could use a new major roller coaster for sure, but I cannot deny that the lineup that they have as is more well-rounded than people give it credit for. So in this video, I wanted to take all 7 coasters at the park and rank them up from worst to best. Do know before we begin that this is all my personal opinion, and also that you guys should like, comment, and subscribe if you are excited to watch. Alright, enough of that. Hope you guys enjoy the list. These are my top 7 roller coasters at Worlds of Fun. Number 7, Cosmic Coaster. For the longest time, this wacky worm style coaster was able to be ridden by any guest in the park. But because of a new park rule that was put in place a couple years ago, you now need a younger guest riding with you to experience the attraction if you are an adult. Now, the more my credit count increases, the more missing a coaster credit, and especially one with the same layout as others I've ridden, seems to bother me. So after awkwardly being denied entry, I decided to suck it up and head to guest relations, which is not something I usually do. It was just a little bit frustrating that I had ridden this exact same ride at other parks with no problem. And good news, they were fast in assisting me with the ride on the Cosmic Coaster. In terms of the actual ride experience, it's absolutely nothing more than your traditional Wacky Worm Kids coaster, which again, I had ridden at many other parks and fairs over the years. It may not have been anything too significant at the end of the day, but the smooth ride and somewhat decent theming should be enough to entertain the little ones at the park. Number 6, Boomerang. You know, I'm not the kind to typically hate on Vekoma Boomerang coasters, and don't be alarmed because I'm not going to do that for this one at Worlds of Fun either. What I will say though is that this one is not particularly great with some of the more harsh lift-hill engages and breakings of all the Boomerangs I've ridden. But other than that, it didn't really run too horribly rough, meaning you still got to enjoy some of the positive G's on the inversions. Still though, there is no denying that Boomerang was a one and done coaster credit, and when I someday return to the park, I don't suspect that I'll be giving it another ride. Number 5, Spinning Dragons. Oddly enough, this is the one Pandemonium-esque roller coaster that you can find at a Cedar Fair park worldwide. You know, the ones that you usually see at Six Flags parks. And actually, due to an off-balance ride I got in Spinning Dragons, this is probably one of my favorite Pandemonium coaster experiences that I've had. I found that it had some awesome spinning, some fun banking, helixes, airtime hills, etc. And honestly, it all makes for a super well-rounded family coaster. I definitely advise you guys to head onto this thing first when you get to the park though, because it's more likely going to have the longest line in the entire park. So fun ride, not anything too special, but again, fun ride. Number 4, Timberwolf. Honestly, it feels so wrong putting this at the number 4 on this list because if we had to pick and choose favorites instead of best coasters, this is probably the second most enjoyable and significant coaster at Worlds of Fun for me. But in terms of actual quality, in terms of general ride experience, balancing out how your ride may be affected in all different seats and rows, I couldn't find it in me to put it higher on this list. But I will say, if you're able to snag a ride in row 11 towards the very back of the train on a non-wheel seat, you are in for a real surprise. I would have never expected a Din wooden coaster to be this much fun, and I seriously had a blast riding Timberwolf. Depending on the person though, putting this even higher on the list is totally a fair assessment. Even I myself am tempted to put it at number 2 on this list, just to give you an idea of how solid Timberwolf actually is. Number 3, Mamba. I don't know what it is about these subpar Morgan hypercoasters, but they really do not do a whole lot at all. Obviously, I familiarized the layout by riding Steel Force at Dorney Park multiple times over the years, but I think I found Mamba to honestly be a little bit worse than Steel Force. It seemed that on every ride on this coaster, the mid-course brake run would screech riders to a near halt, which meant very mild floater airtime for the entire return trip of the ride. Meanwhile, on Steel Force, which still trims a little too much to be honest, but still not nearly enough as Mamba, you're able to appreciate some genuinely quality floater moments in the second portion of the ride, at least usually. But the main reason Mamba does clock in as high as 3 on the list is because there's no denying that the first half is loads of fun. Since it is impossible to get stapled on these Morgan hypercoasters, you're able to fly out of your seat and land violently down into your seat on most every hill before the mid-course. In addition, the massive helix mid-ride did cause me to gray out on every ride, which is a bit of a surprise, but it maybe shouldn't have because I do recall the same thing happening to me on Steel Force. Nonetheless, Mamba is solid in the first half and not so solid in the second half, so take the hypercoaster experience as you will. Number 2, Patriot. For the longest time, I had seen this ride as being potentially the worst of the worst B&M inverts out there. And while it does rank towards the bottom on my personal list, I do have to admit that the ride caught me quite a bit by surprise. It oftentimes receives criticism for being too forceless, but if you can appreciate the sheer pacing, Patriot is actually a really solid roller coaster. I'd even say the pacing is better than what can be found on its sister coaster, Talon at Dorney Park. It's not like the inversions were particularly whippy either. Matter of fact, they weren't really whippy at all, but I just was not expecting the train to speed through its layout like it did. And also, there happens to be a couple moments of legitimate invert airtime, which is such a bizarre sensation, so look out for that when you give Patriot a ride. In all honesty though, this coaster did exceed my somewhat minimalistic expectations, and for that it actually does get a pretty big thumbs up for me. Number 1, Prowler. By far, this was the one roller coaster at Worlds of Fun that really left a lasting impression on me. Built in 2009 by Great Coasters International, Prowler has a fantastic out and back layout that hardly loses any speed the whole way through. Funny enough, this coaster is pretty comparable to Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, which sometimes seems to get a little too much love. On the contrary, not many coaster enthusiasts say much of the same about Prowler, and my guess as to why is because it's situated at a park that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Of course, that does not deduct any points, because Prowler is absolutely awesome and it rips through its layout from the second you disengage with the lift hill. I am definitely glad that Worlds of Fun had this coaster built, because it is without question the standout attraction at the park for me. So absolutely awesome ride, and if I remember correctly, it's also a top 50 worthy coaster in my opinion. So there we have it, all 7 operating roller coasters at Worlds of Fun ranked from worst to best. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'd definitely be curious as to whether or not you ranked some of these rides differently, or maybe you listed them the same way. Definitely let me know down in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as it absolutely means the world to me. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.